Stardust Racers is the new headlining roller coaster at Universal's brand new theme park, Epic Universe, which will be making its grand opening to the public on May 22nd of this year. Just like Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure, Stardust Racers is meant to be a supercoaster, meaning the ride will offer an immense thrill with the goal of being greatly popular with most park guests. Along the ride course, riders will experience ample amounts of ejector airtime, which will greatly contribute to the ride's exceptional popularity. The two tracks of the attraction mark the return of a dueling roller coaster experience to Orlando after the loss of Dueling Dragons at Islands of Adventure in 2017. The two coasters are manufactured by Mack Rides, and from what I hear, Mack Rides went all out to deliver the most intense ride experience they possibly could. But this is where we get into a bit of the drama with Stardust Racers, and that is a trim brake was actually added on both tracks to slow down the trains. We can see the trim brake here in this recent picture taken by BioReconstruct. To roller coaster enthusiasts, trim brakes are our arch nemesis, as we want roller coasters to run the most ferocious they possibly can. However, in this case, the addition of polarizing trim brakes was actually necessary, and I'll describe exactly why they were added in this video. I'll also discuss if the ride experience will be neutered as a result. If you enjoyed this video as it plays, I kindly ask for your support by clicking the like button, as it helps the channel immensely against the YouTube algorithm. As I just mentioned, a trim brake was added to both tracks, and it occurs quite early in the layout. The trims were placed on the drop of the top hat, which is the first ride element immediately following the first launch on both tracks. This may seem like a concerning placement for trim brakes, as a majority of the ride's airtime hills occur between the top hat and second launch, so any slowdown of the train on the top hat could limit to some degree the majority of airtime riders will experience in the layout. Taking a look at the trim brakes, we see the metal fins which are attached to the track. These metal fins interact with powerful permanent magnets mounted beneath the trains, and since the metal fins are fixed in position, these trim brakes will always slow down each train. This is similar to other applications of fixed magnetic trim brakes like on Intimidator 305, which now goes by the name Pantherion at King's Dominion. Now thankfully, these trims do not occur until the drop has reached its steepest angle of descent, meaning the deceleration of the trim brakes will be the least noticeable, as the train's acceleration towards the ground will be the highest at this steep angle. Something else to note is that these brake fins are a different color than the darker metal fins used on the ride's final brake run, and it turns out the metal alloy being used in these trims is less reactive than the brake fins Mack typically uses. This is similar to the use of two different metal alloys on the final brake run of King Ka, RIP, at Six Flags Great Adventure. The brake fins at the top of the Camelback were lighter and slowed the train less than the darker brake fins later on the hill, which would more effectively slow down the train. So in Stardust Racers, this means the train shouldn't be slowed down too much by the trims, and mathematically the train can't be slowed down too much as the following hill is quite high in comparison to the top hat, and slowing the train too much would present the risk of valleying trains. So why was this trim added at all? Well, in the pursuit to make Stardust Racers as thrilling as possible, the transition from negative g-forces as the train descends the drop into positive g-forces as the train pulls upward occurs just ever so slightly too quickly. The American Society for Testing and Materials, or ASTM International, is a non-profit organization that develops and publishes approximately 12,000 technical standards. Fittingly, they have published a standard design protocol for amusement rides and devices, which includes the severity of g-forces that can be safely applied to riders, how long certain g-forces can be sustained, and how quickly g-forces are allowed to switch from something like negative to positive g's. On Stardust Racers, this rapid transition from negative to positive g-forces is only an issue in car 5 of each train, as the transition occurs within limits on cars 1 through 4. And when I say the transition occurs too quickly on car 5, it's only too fast by milliseconds. But regulations are regulations, so a fix had to be implemented to allow the transition of forces to occur within an allowed time frame. I won't state the official g-forces in this video, but I can tell you that in car 5, the drop of the top hat will take you from a very extreme negative g-force to a pretty extreme positive g-force. So when you ride this coaster, it does seem like the back car is going to be the place to be. From what I understand, the last thing Universal wanted to do was add a trim brake to the ride. I've heard a variety of measures were taken to slow down the transition of forces, much more than you'd see from a more normal theme park, like slowing down the first launch ever so slightly and even attempting to change the profiling of the track on the drop of the top hat. Through over a dozen different attempts, none were able to bring the transition of forces within the allowable time frame, so the last resort was taken to add a trim brake to the drop. At first, just a single brake fin was added to the track, but this wasn't sufficient, so a second brake fin had to be added next to the original like we see here. And like I just mentioned, these brake fins are less reactive than the brake fins used on the main brake run, and are only meant to slow the train ever so slightly, so that the transition of forces takes just slightly longer. Overall, the intent is that the rest of the ride should be hardly affected by these trim brakes, even if they are fixed in position and thus always active. I'm hearing that each track individually already rivals coasters like Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point or the Voyage at Holiday World for total airtime duration, so we can certainly expect a lot of airtime with Stardust Racers, even with the addition of this new trim brake. I'm just really hoping that this new trim brake doesn't turn the ride into a potential valley machine like Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket is at Universal Studios, as that ride is extremely sensitive in what weather conditions, especially wind, it can run in. So hopefully that won't be an issue here on Stardust Racers, as the height of the second hill following the top hat was designed in mind without a trim brake at all between the two. So hopefully the ride can still run in pretty windy conditions. So that will do it for this quick video covering the recently added trim brakes to both tracks of Stardust Racers. I just wanted to give you all an explanation as to why they had to be installed, how much Universal really did not want to include them, and that the ride should hopefully be mostly unaffected. I'm not even sure how many people were aware that these trim brakes were added, so if you're just learning that trims were installed, hopefully any rapidly formed anxiety you may have developed has already been calmed down. Thank you all for watching, and comment below how excited you are to try out Stardust Racers and the rest of the new attractions opening this year at Epic Universe. I am so pumped to visit the park later this year and cannot wait to try out Stardust Racers. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more nerdy content just like this. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.